We are back, everyone, for a 2023 NFL season preview, and we're going to be going through the divisions one by one, starting the NFC North, next week the NFC East, the following week NFC South, then NFC West, and then we're going to go do that exact same order for the AFC. But I'm joined with my father again for this season, Tony. Say hello to everyone, Tony.
Hello to everyone, Tony.
So is this the most you've studied for NFL seasons in a long time?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, you know how it's been with my schedule and everything lately, but I had so much fun during the draft. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to get more involved again.
Yep. This is the first time in human history that the son has been given the father homework instead of the opposite way around.
I'm not sure if it's the first time in human history, but it's the first time in our history, so that's close enough.
Yeah. Hopefully the last time you ever give me homework. So we're going to be talking about the NFC North, and this is a very fun division. It's got a lot of good teams on the rise, young talent throughout it, some brand new storylines. The first time that in my lifetime the Green Bay Packers haven't had a certified franchise quarterback. Well, I mean, Rodgers was kind of guaranteed pretty much his first year.
Yeah, we just don't know right now what's going to happen, so...
Yeah. I have been alive since 2001. I'm allowed to legally drink in America, and this is the first time in my lifetime Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers is not the starting quarterback week one. That's insane.
Yeah. Three starting quarterbacks in over 22 years. That's pretty amazing.
Yep. But we're yet to talk about the Packers, and they're moving on from Rodgers to Love. Instead, we're going to start off with the worst team in the division last year, the number one overall pick, even though they traded it, the Chicago Bears. And here's the biggest question about the Bears. How much did they improve from the worst record in the league? What do you think?
Well, it depends upon how you're talking about that. I think they got a lot better. They, between the draft and free agency, they brought in players all across the board. I still think they have issues with depth. But other than that, I think they got marketably better. The only question is it going to reflect that much in their record this year? Last year they were 3-14, and let's be honest, they should have won a few more games last year, but their defense at the end let them down, and their offense couldn't sustain. So I think that they'll have some more wins this year than they did last year, but they've got a pretty tough schedule. If you look at who they have to play this year, you know, and so far as like the division schedules, they have to play the AFC West, the NFC South, and then their record match for the NFC West, which I think that they'll beat Arizona. The NFC East, so that's going to be the Commanders, and then the AFC North, and that's the Browns. And nobody really knows right now what's going on with the Browns. So they've got murderers row. To actually get a better record, I think they're going to have to pull off some upsets in division.
Yep. So, question: when they play the Chiefs, is that the Bears fans' revenge game against Matt Nagy, or is that Matt Nagy's revenge game against the Bears?
I think that Andy Reid will probably just say, "Hey, you know, Nagy, why don't you stay home this game?"
Let's see. Well, it's in KC, so he doesn't have to worry about objects flying at him. Although Bears quarterback's history, that he does got nothing to worry about. Sorry, Bears fans. Your best quarterback in my lifetime has been Rex Grossman.
I don't know. I'd say Cutler was probably better, but that's okay. That's just
I forgot about him completely.
Just my opinion.
And this not shot Justin Fields. Justin Fields is still unknown. I'm saying that now. He's still an unknown.
Yeah, preface that by excluding Justin Fields.
Yes, excluding Justin Fields, he could be the best quarterback in Bears history. That's not a high bar, but it's an important bar for the Bears to pass if they want to get to the Super Bowl or just even run the NFC North when you look at the talent here now. And as you said, their schedule is tougher, but they kind of start out easy. I think they have 3 winnable games in the first month of the year. The Packers, we don't know what they are yet. At Tampa Bay, me and you are not high on the Bucs. At KC is going to be a murderer's row. And then versus the Broncos in Chicago. I think those are 3 winnable games there. And KC has tended to lose a game they shouldn't have in the first month of the season in the past couple seasons.
I think that's probably because they've been bringing in so many new players but I just don't see that right now. Like I said, when you talk about the other games that they could possibly win, I truly think that they can beat uh, the Bucks, and Denver is going to be iffy. I mean, I just don't know. Nobody knows about the Broncos right now. Is Russell Wilson going to be able to accept coaching, and is he going to turn it around? Uh, I believe he still has the skill sets. My problem is, like I said for the last year and a half, and probably a little bit before that, is like he's kind of a one-trick pony. He doesn't have the escapability that he used to have, and so now all he really has is that deep ball. And if you play cover two against him, and you can get pressure up the middle, so it's gonna be interesting to see what Peyton can do to alleviate that issue. And the Bucks, yeah, they could be first on the on the clock this year.
I don't think many Bucks fans would be too upset if they got Caleb Williams after this year. But we're not talking about the Broncos. We're not talking about the Bucks. This is about the Bears. Quarterback play. I liked what I saw from Justin Fields. Even if he wasn't like the most prolific passer last year, he didn't have a lot of talent to throw to. But he found ways for his team to win games, or at least keep it close. We saw the Bears without Justin Fields was it the last 3 weeks or something he missed?
Something like that, yeah.
We saw how dreadful they looked with Nathan Peterman and all that behind him. So Justin Fields is clearly their number one guy, and he probably will bring them a punch that they can use to build off of. They can keep it close. I wouldn't be shocked if they split games with the Packers and Vikings this year. Maybe not the Lions, but that's to be determined with how we see the product on the field. Matt Eberflus, I thought, did a great job building up that defense in Indianapolis. He's starting here in Chicago. And as I've noticed, and we talked about this a little bit, I think it was a week or two ago, Gravon Dexter has looked like he's lost some weight, and it looks like he's going to be playing more of the DeForest Buckner role in that defense for Eberflus. And that's something that Chicago did not have last year. And as we saw with Buckner in Indianapolis with Eberflus, it was a much valued position for his defense. And I'm not saying Dexter is going to be DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner is one of the best interior D linemen in the NFL, but he brings that position possibly that is needed in Eberflus's defense.
Well, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I like Dexter. He was kind of like a favorite of mine in the draft. So, in fact, the Bears drafted quite a few of the guys that I thought could make a significant splash this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We've seen a bunch of his tape, and I have a different take on his tape than a lot of people.
If the Bears' defensive draft class is a home run, I'm not going to hear the end of it. I'm just not. But you look at this, their offense has improved. Bringing DJ Moore to be their number one wide receiver. Robert Tonyan to be tight end. And you and I kind of agree with, we don't want to see them limit Kmet just being a blocker, Brian Tonyan, because Kmet was a very good weapon for them last year. You got Darnell Mooney in there who can kind of play a slot. And you got Chase Claypool who, even though he has had some struggles, he is still very athletic. He can burn some people. And he's got a 6'4" frame and a pretty good vertical. If he can find something in that offense, it'll be very good for Justin.
Well, I think the thing for Claypool right now is he's not the number one receiver. So he's not going to be going up against everybody's best DB, which is what was happening last year and even some in Pittsburgh. So I think that if he is going to show anything, it's going to be now.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he's going to be good in Chicago. I'm not like a Steeler fan who's anti-Claypool. When I saw the trade, I thought it was too much for Chicago. I think a lot of Bears fans would agree with me on that. But I do want to see Claypool succeed. And hey, props to him. He just did like a modeling thing in Italy or France or something I saw. So good for him in his life. And there's one last position group. Well, two, but the running back position I think's better than last year, even though you lost Dave Montgomery. But bringing Roshan Johnson, who was the other guy they brought in?
Well, they brought in Johnson, they brought in Dante Foreman, and Travis Homer and Homer is just going to be primarily third down back, and then
you have Khalil Herbert,
special teams. You have Herbert, and I mean, Foreman did a great job last year in Carolina. So, I think they've got a really, really solid running back group.
And we can talk about as great as we want about the improved receiver group, improved running back group. Just Fields can take a jump. The tight end group looks better. It's not going to matter if their O-line does not improve. And the Bears took a step forward, hopefully for Justin Fields' sake and for the Chicago Bears' future sake, and taking Darnell Wright. You were much higher on him than I was, but I still like the idea of taking a tackle no matter what at 10 because you protect your quarterback who you have so much invested in winning.
I think the biggest thing between our viewpoints is that you don't think that a right tackle should be taken that high.
Exactly.
Whereas for myself, a lot of times anymore, you have edge rushers that are superstars coming off of both sides. And so if he's the best offensive lineman on the board at the time, take him because you just locked down a side. So now you don't have to try to stunt on two sides. You only have to worry about one side.
That's true. I mean, the Bears needed everything, and hopefully they take a step forward. I would like to see the Bears be good. I like Justin Fields. I like Matt Eberflus. Special teams, there's not really much to talk about there. As long as they don't double doink something, they'll be fine. Up next, are the Detroit Lions ready to make the jump, and what do you think on that?
This is where you're probably going to hang up on me. I'm not sure that the Detroit Lions didn't take a step backwards this year. They lost a lot of talent. They got a lot of talent in the defensive secondary, but other than that, they lost offensive talent that I don't really think that they replaced adequately, and because of that, I'm curious what's going to happen. I mean, they drafted Gibbs. I understand that. I love Jack Campbell. Love him. I was higher on.
I think I love Campbell more than you.
I don't think so. And then I was higher on Laporta more than you, and then we both loved Branch. But so if you take, Campbell, Laporta, and Branch, I think those are three really, really solid picks. Campbell, day one starter. Laporta, probably, and Branch definitely. Gibbs is. He's more of a, in my opinion, he's going to be more of a specialist back. And for taking him, where they took him, I'm just not sure that was wise. And you think about who they lost. I mean, especially at the running back position, when you lose
Swift,
not Swift, excuse me. You lose him, and they were dynamic last year in the running game, and they don't have that muscle. They don't have that hard-headed attack that they had last year.
I disagree because I think Dave Montgomery can fill in that role no problem.
We'll see, but I'm not as high on him as I am on what they had last year.
Okay, we could spend a while talking about the Gibbs pick. You and I were both shocked when it happened. I didn't like it. I don't think you were the biggest fan of it, and you liked Gibbs a lot more than I did.
I like Gibbs a lot more, but I like Gibbs in the bottom of the first round, maybe the top of the second.
My whole problem with that, taking Gibbs, if you were going to take a running back, you could have drafted Bijan. And I maybe was not the draft Bijan high, even though I thought he was a special talent. But if you're going to take a running back, take the guy who's a generational running back.
We hope.
But there hasn't been a running back since like Ezekiel Elliott coming to the draft.
As a prospect, you're absolutely right.
So we look at that, and in my head, I've just convinced myself Brian Branch was their first pick and Gibbs was in the second round. That's just what I've done in my head to convince myself to like this class more than I actually do. Because, like you said, Campbell, great pick. Laporta, great pick. And Branch, great pick. Ironically, they traded with Green Bay to get that. I wonder if they'll regret that in the future. And the Packers, to be specific.
Yeah.
I look at this. I look at the Lions class, and they got 3 picks I really love, but that first pick, it's kind of a stinker. There was talent on the board I preferred. I think we both thought it was going to be Christian Gonzalez there, if I'm correct.
Yeah, we both did. Well, we both thought it was going to be Gonzalez or, another high end. And to be quite honest, if they would have gone and gotten another defensive lineman, it wouldn't have been a bad thing either. It was just you're taking him. And the reason why I say that I think he was better off in the latter rounds is because the teams that were picking in the latter part of they could use a specialty back, right? So it's not, you can't, I just don't think that you can rely on him to be an every down back. And they had Jamal Williams last year, who was an absolute stud. And you and I are going to agree to disagree, but Montgomery is not taking Jamal Williams' place in that offense.
I'll disagree with that, but I will say this. I don't think Montgomery takes Williams' locker room presence, because I think Williams was a Dan Campbell guy. I think he was important for that locker room. That's why I didn't get moving off Williams, because I think Montgomery's a better player, but I think Williams he kind of fits that team more. Kind of like that underdog personality, the bite the kneecaps off, whatever you want to call it. But we can look at the bright side. As much as you do think the offense maybe took a step back, I disagree. Their defense took a step forward, I believe, in the offseason. We both love the Brian Branch pick. Jack Campbell's a day 1 starter, and I think he's going to be awesome. We'll get into him a bit later. And I love Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Maybe I'm a biased Florida fan, but I've been a fan of him since he got drafted to the Saints. The corners, Cam Sutton. I was a big fan of him with the Steelers. Was sad to see him go. Happy he got paid. I look at their secondary, it's improved. Now, improving off last year's secondary, I don't think was that hard of a challenge, but it's important. Do I think this team is ready to make the jump and win the division? Yes, I do. Are they ready to beat Philadelphia? No. That's where I'll leave it at.
Well, I'll agree that they're not ready to beat Philadelphia, so.
You got anything to add on the Lions defense, or do you want to move to the Packers?
No, I think that's pretty good. I mean, their secondary did get a lot better. They also got Mosley from the 49ers. So what was a definite weakness last year can be pretty strong. So I think that's going to be good. But like I said, if they're going to win this year, they're going to win differently than they won last year.
Yeah, and I think, and I just completely blanked on this guy, but he just popped in my head. Do you see a second-year jump for Aiden Hutchinson, or do you kind of expect more of what we saw last year, just progressing slowly?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that helped them out last year with him is they were jumping out to leads, right? So, and if you're going to jump out to leads, then all he has to do is pin his ear back. And he is a great, he has a good first move where he was getting hung up early on when they were struggling to, not to score because they scored prolifically all year long, but when the games were close and teams were able to run more, that's where they struggled as a defense. And so, whereas I think he'll probably be better this year, just getting stronger and, understanding what he needs to do more in his role. I don't know if it's going to be as big of a jump. And I'm going to say that and then basically go a complete 180 and say with that secondary back there, locking things down for a little bit longer, it may be that he comes out and has an even better year.
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of forgot about that you just brought up. I remember, the first game I sat down and watched live with Aiden Hutchinson as an NFL player, not college player, was the Packers game that the Lions beat the Packers in. The first one, not the second one. And I was just watching and thinking, why isn't Green Bay running the damn football?
Because they didn't like to run the ball.
No kidding. And we're just going to jump to Green Bay now. Do you think they're going to run the ball to protect Jordan Love, or are they going to let him die?
They're probably going to run the ball a lot more. I honestly am not sure if not running the ball was Aaron or if it was LaFleur in the offense. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do this year. But
I think it was both, because if you look back at his years in Tennessee, he did not give Derrick Henry as many carries as you would think. But I think we look at it, we can talk about the Packers as much as we want. We both love their draft class.
absolutely.
Lucas Van Ness was a personal favorite of both of ours. He'll be perfect in Green Bay. He'll be that guy who's maybe not going to be dominant year one, but in future years to come, he's going to be like that Packers defender. You have Luke Musgrave, who you loved a lot more than I did. And I liked him, but you loved him.
I love him. Yes, I do. I would have loved him to come to Seattle in some way. They didn't really need to draft a tight end this year, but I mean, he is one of my favorite tight ends in this draft.
In a very good tight end class.
In a very good tight end class.
The line, it's kind of the same, but Bakhtiari's going to be playing most of the season. It's hard to figure that out. Receiving core, we're expecting a jump with Dobbs and Watson in their second year. You look at the running game, Aaron Jones is good. A.J. Dillon's good. Tight end room, as we just said, Musgrave, we both think is going to be good in Green Bay.
But they also picked up Tucker Kraft, too.
That's right.
And we have both seen Tucker Kraft play football, so.
Now listen, I don't know how many people will listen to this and be like FCS football fans. Tucker Kraft he bullied FCS teams, and I know that's expected for an NFL draft prospect. No, you had to watch him play football, and players were just bouncing off of him. They couldn't tackle him. They couldn't wrap him up.
If he's as successful as we think, South Dakota State could be considered a tight end factory after him. So
no kidding, Dallas Goedert as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but we look at the Packers. The offense is going to come down to, is Jordan Love ready? I'm higher on Love than you, but even I have my reservations about, is he going to do a lot with this offense? Because we saw Aaron Rodgers, a Pro Football Hall of Famer, first ballot, struggle with this offense last year, and Jordan Love will be his first year as a full-time starter. I think it was very smart how he extended his contract, both the organization and him. You kind of have another year now, but it kind of feels like the Packers are the first time in my lifetime mediocre. And that feels weird to say.
Well, you've already said that I'm not as high on Love as you are. But with what they did in the draft, I think that they could finish right around that same record of 8-9, maybe 7-10, 8-9, heck, maybe even 9-8 somehow, right? And even if they finish 7-9, or 7-10 or 8-9, which is the same as last year, I think they're actually a better team. Maybe not at the quarterback position, but he's got to grow into it, and they have more depth now than they did previously.
This feels like, I'm going to go to basketball. The Warriors took a year off of their dominant dynasty run. They were the second overall pick. Players got hurt. They retooled. They brought in a lot of young guys. They let them develop. Then the following year, they went and won an NBA championship. Not saying the Packers are going to go to the Super Bowl, but this feels like we're just kind of going to take this year off. We're going to get our young guys developed. We're going to get them ready, and then the following time, if Love's ready, we're ready to make that jump. And if we are bad enough, we'll take a Caleb Williams. We'll take a Drake May. Quinn Ewers looks nice. Michael Penix looks nice. There are quarterbacks this upcoming class. So just because Love isn't the guy does not mean the Packers don't have a plan B, I'm sure. And you can look at their defense. Jair Alexander is a great corner. He has issues staying healthy, but when he's on the field, he's very dynamic. Rashawn Gary, I believe this is a contract year for him, if I'm correct.
Yes, it is.
So this will be an important year for him. He's healthy. The linebacker room is but you got Kenny Clark at the defensive line position. And we both like Lucas Van Ness, but I have a hard time seeing him come out of the gates on fire. Maybe as the season progresses, as he develops a bit more, because he didn't get a lot of playing time in Iowa, which you can call what it is, stupid by the head coach. But you look at this team, it's a lot of young talent. They're going to kind of have to come together. They're going to have to develop as the season goes on. They might be a team that starts out struggling, but finishes the season strong.
Yeah, I think that, like we've both said, their young players are going to have to develop, and their young players are actually going to have to play well. So I think that's going to predicate how the year is. If Jordan Love, who will actually show up to training camp and get to build a relationship with his receivers, unlike the aforementioned quarterback in Green Bay.
Hey, he was busy in darkness. Give him a break.
I know, right? But if he can build a relationship and get on the same page with these guys, then they can be efficient. They've still got a really good running game, and their offensive line, they're always hurt, but they seem to always be able to bring people in that we've never heard of, and they play well. So it's going to be a lot of running to set up some play action pass, and he does have a good deep ball. So that we'll see what happens there, but it's just going to depend upon the young player development.
100%. And I think that's all we have to really talk about the Packers for now. We'll be talking about them a little later. But up next are the division winners, the Minnesota Vikings. And what's their new defense going to look like with Brian Flores now brought in? And was last year a fluke? Or can it be something built upon?
Well, no, it wasn't a fluke because they won the games. That being said, they weren't as good a team as their 13-4 record said. They were able to put up a ton of points on offense, but when you look at the offense versus points scored versus points allowed, they actually gave up more points than they scored last year, and they were 13-4. So when they got beat, they got beat. I think their defense is going to be a lot more aggressive this year. They have made some acquisitions in the secondary, which will really help them out. And I think the greatest acquisition that they did was the coach, Brian Flores, because he's a great defensive coach, and he'll turn this defense around right away.
I think they should have let him stay put at his previous job. I think that was a much better place for Flores, personally.
I'm pretty sure that's team bias, though.
It is not. Tomlin saved him. Actually, well, there might be an argument for that, but that's a little bit too point. I do agree. Brian Flores is a great defensive mind. He maybe isn't the best head coach with Miami and everything, even though I liked what he did there. But at the very least, he's a great defensive mind. He's learned under Belichick for many years. He's going to bring some new style defense to the Vikings, which is desperately needed after last year's conundrum with Ed Donatel. Just wasn't that good of a defense. The secondary clearly lacked. They did get some players in the draft. You like Jordan Addison more than I did personally. I do think he's a talent, and playing opposite side of Justin Jefferson will be very helpful. I think it's Mekhi Blackman. Is that correct?
Yes, out of USC.
Mekhi Blackman. Those are their first two picks. I'm not as high on them as other people are. I didn't watch too much Blackman. I kind of was like, he's fine. Addison, I watched a good bit of. I watched his highlights not his highlights, his stuff at Pitt and then his stuff at USC. You could tell there was a difference in him not being the guy, the ball that's always going to get to him, and playing with a different style offense than with what they did at Pitt, which Kenny Pickett just said, Addison, you're my guy. There you are.
Which I think is actually going to work out really well for him. He's not the guy. So he's going to be open. And they have now 3 could be a dynamic receiving core. So with Osborne, with the man, and then with Addison. So their receiving core could be really special. And I like picking up Dwayne McBride as well. I know he's got a problem holding onto the ball.
Thank you. I couldn't think of his name. That was driving me crazy. I was just looking up their draft class to find his name.
No. McBride, like I said, I really like him. He's had a problem holding on the ball, but he's a pounder. So if they can fix his hands, put a little stick him on there or whatever else. One of the big acquisitions that they made was picking up Byron Murphy as well, and he will make a difference in that backfield. That's in the secondary. That's for sure.
I gotta ask you, it was a move that happened. I don't remember your exact opinion on it when I told you about it. Although, minus the fact that you said I was right. Dalvin Cook being released, how does that affect the Vikings offense?
You know, I'm not sure that it's going to hurt as much so far as in the long run. They'll miss his explosive plays, but Madison is I mean, he has played really, really well. And they drafted, I can't remember the kid's name that they drafted last year. And you were really high on him. So they had him, but they didn't get him on the field last year. Not that they couldn't, but they didn't get him on the field last year. So I still think they have depth in the backfield. It's just going to limit their really explosive plays.
Ty Chandler.
Yes, Ty Chandler. Thank you.
I had to look it up. Don't feel bad. I was already looking for the 23 class. I could easily switch over to the 22. I think the Vikings are improved on defense, but it is hard for me to say they're going to be. They are probably a better team with a worse record this year, if that makes sense to people.
I don't think they're going 13-4, but I still think they're the best team in the division.
I disagree, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I think they're a better team than last year. I don't think they're 13-4, as I said, but there's going to be a better product on the field, even in their losses. And they're not going to win every one-score game like they did last year, which was insane. That will come back and flip the other way a bit. Not saying they're going to lose everyone, but you're probably not get that lucky. Let alone, how many of those games were won by Vikings kickers? That's the first time in history they've won games with their kickers being accurate.
It had to happen sooner or later.
Yeah, but we know Vikings they ain't going to last long. So, now we're going to get into kind of our rankings and all that. And up first, coaching and coaching staffs ranked. I mainly just did the head coaches because there's only a one coordinator I know a lot about. I really do like him, but I kind of just defaulted to head coaches, which guys I think has built a good staff, has had continuous success. I don't know how you built it, but my number 4 is Matt Eberflus. We didn't see enough out of the Bears last year for me to put him any higher than 4. I think he's good. I was a big fan of his hiring, but he did have the worst record in the league last year. There were some questionable decisions. How he handled the Roquan Smith situation can be questioned and all that.
I would agree. I have them as the 4th best coaching staff as well.
Yep. Number 3, I put O'Connell of the Vikings. I do think he can be a very good head coach, and Brian Flores did come in there. But I like the other 2 more. I think the guys that we're going to get into, one built a culture from nothing and has them ready to run through a brick wall. And the other one has won multiple division titles, has been in the NFC Championship game multiple times. It's hard for me not to put him higher than O'Connell.
What I would say is that I actually have the Vikings here as well.
Oh, wow. I did not see that coming.
Yeah. And I like Mike Pettin, the assistant head coach, and I really like O'Connell as well. But it's one of those things where he is still really, really early in his career as a head coach. And there were things last year that I believe that they missed the ball on. They had a great record. That's fine, but they missed the ball on it. Bringing in Brian Flores, hey, I think that's a huge coup. And if that team comes around like I think it might next year when we're doing this, they might move up a little bit.
Yeah, I just viewed it as comparing him to my number 2 in Dan Campbell. I think he got more than what Campbell did at Detroit. And Campbell, as I said, he built the culture there. He's built this team up from nothing. They're ready to die for him on the field when he watches them play. it's a team that I think is ready to make the jump. I think they are very well coached. I think even though Campbell does do some stuff you're a little question, they ultimately love and respect him, which is very good for a head coach, especially in the NFL level where some guys just don't understand how you click with players.
And see, I'm the complete opposite on this. Is I have the Packers ranked next.
Wow.
I have the Lions with the best coaching staff, and here's my reason why. You said it already. Culture. Campbell took a culture of losers. I mean, honestly, losers, and he brought in people with the same mentality. Ben Johnson, within the next 1 or 2 years, will be a head coach in the game. I love Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator. You know, Dre Bly for coaching your cornerbacks. I mean, seriously, really? I just think that with what he brought for the culture and the players that he has or the coaches that he has surrounding the players, and they have buy-in because these guys are successful. Whereas Matt LaFleur, don't get me wrong, I mean, just like you said, he came in, you know, he division winner. He honestly helped turn Aaron Rodgers' career and got a couple more MVPs out of it. And I love Rich Bisaccia. I still think he should be the head coach in Las Vegas.
We'll get to that when we talk about the Raiders.
Yeah, that's fine. But I personally don't like Joe Barry in the passing game. And I'm not a huge Adam Stenavich fan, right? So I don't think that they have as great a pedigree on their assistant coaches and their coordinators as what Campbell has built. And like we've said, he turned a culture around, which is completely unheard of.
You're starting to sway me, but I think I'm going to have to take this with results at the end of the day. And the Packers have had results, even if you can say, well, he had Aaron Rodgers. He also had to deal with Aaron Rodgers. I think with what LaFleur did in Green Bay, he turned Rodgers' career around because, let's not forget, Rodgers wasn't doing well until LaFleur got his hands on him. And he built the team up. He got some receivers in. He highlighted Devontae Adams, even though Devontae Adams is not hard to highlight. He got Aaron Jones going. They brought in A.J. Dillon. They brought in a lot of this talent. If this team is good this year, I think that shows a bit more of how great of a coach he is because he doesn't have Rodgers. And as you said, the defenses have been kind of questionable, the coaching staffs. They have been as good on defense as they should have been with the talent they have. And I understand your reasoning there. And if you want to put Campbell at 1 because of it, I fully understand. But it's hard for me to ignore the 2 NFC Championship games.
The one thing I'm going to say here real quick is they went to the NFC Championship, and what happened both times?
That is true. There was some horrible decision-making.
They were out. He was out-coached. They were outplayed, right? What's been the biggest game for the Detroit Lions last year or in the past since Dan Campbell's got
Are you trying to get – okay, fine. Dan Campbell's won. You're making me eat my words. Yeah, that is very fair because the Lions had no real reason to play in that after Seattle won.
Exactly.
But they went out there and they took the Packers' head and they gave them a swirly. And when the game was almost done, they decided to shove the head in there again for another swirly. I
just think that he's on the right track. Like I said, I think that they're going to take a step backwards this year a little bit offensively. They'll win differently, but, you know.
I think and this is something that we should talk about, when Dan Campbell was hired, we both were like, what? And then we heard the opening press conference, we were like, oh, this guy will be out of there soon. I was wrong, Campbell. I'm fully ready to admit it. And I love him as a coach. He brings that style. It's weird to think he might be Sean Payton's best coaching tree guy. And you would never guess that when you look at Sean Payton. He's the exact opposite of Sean Payton, pretty much.
Yeah, well, I think that he has credibility. Everything he's done makes him credible. If you remember 2 years ago when he was like, hey, we suck, I'm going to take over the play calling after a couple games. He's like, whoa, I suck, take it back, right? So those kinds of things, hey, we're struggling, we're going to try something new. Oh, this made it worse, so I was wrong, and we're going to go back and tweak it a little bit this way. But at least he doesn't have the ego that says that well, it's my way or the highway. Nagy, with the Bears.
He ran right where I was about to do.
Gave up the offensive play calling. Razor
had
turned
success.
The offensive round, and then, oh wait, no, it's working now. I must have done something right, so now I'm going to take it back over.
No, I think it was no. I want the credit. But here's the thing. Also, when players sign Detroit, when they get drafted by Detroit, they know the culture. They know what they're getting into. And in years past, you could argue Detroit didn't have that thing. As much great talent in my lifetime the Lions have had, Calvin Johnson's the best receiver I've ever seen. In your lifetime, they've had Barry Sanders, maybe the best running back of all time. They've never gone over the hump, and you can call that coaching, even though they have had some good coaches. Call it GMing, whatever. I think they have a good combo with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell for the future, at the very least.
I agree.
So, now let's get into draft class ranked. Now, you saw my list ahead of time, because I had to send you the rundown.
Yeah.
Number 4, and I know you're going to disagree with it, the Vikings. There just wasn't enough oomph, if that makes sense, for me to be like, yeah, I liked it better than the Bears. Yeah, I liked it better than the Lions. I liked it better than the Packers. I didn't see
I agree. If you think about it, they didn't have, I mean, I like Jordan Addison, so, but they didn't have a lot of draft to begin with, and so they did okay with what they had. But, I mean, there were some really impressive draft picks and draft classes in this division. So,
yeah. So my number 3, and I debated on this for a while if I'd put them 3 or 2. I gave them 3 just due to number 2's second round. The Chicago Bears. I'm not the biggest Darnell Wright fan, but that being said, I thought their class overall was really good. I might not be as in love with Gravon Dexter as you are, but I understand what he's going to do in Eberflus defense. Tyreek Stevenson, again, you loved him more than me, but I liked him as well. I thought he was a very good second-round pick. And they just they didn't have a pick that I said, that's going to set them back. That's a bad pick. Did they maybe have a reach or two for me? Yeah, but I understood them. It wasn't like, we'll get to number 2 with their first pick.
Yeah, I'm on record, not a huge fan with a few of the Lions draft picks. So I actually have the Lions in third place. Similar, sorry about that. Similar to the reason why, you have, I like Campbell. Well, actually, I love Campbell. I love Laporta and I love Branch. Hendon Hooker wasn't a bad pick, but they just taking Gibbs when they did, when there were, players that they could have taken that I in my opinion, would have had a greater impact on them versus the Bears and what the Bears.
Oh, well, we had a little audio cut out.
Sorry about that. No, what the Bears did, the Bears needed offensive line help. They went out and got offensive line help. If you think about it, the Bears went out and got defensive tackles, Dexter, Zach Pickens, Travis Bell.
I wasn't the biggest Bell fan.
They got him in the 7th round. So he's a body, right? But they're planning on beefing up one of their biggest weaknesses because last year their secondary played pretty well, but they could not do anything on the defensive line. So they went to fix that. Roschon Johnson, you love Roschon Johnson, and so
number 2 rated running back for me in this class.
So you loved him. He's great. Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati. I don't know what it is, but with the exception of Sauce Gardner, these Cincinnati players that are coming out that are just way impacting the league don't seem to get a lot of credit. And I think he's going to be another one that's going to be sneaky. I'm not as big a Noah Sewell fan as you, But I mean, if you put him in and use him as the thumper, along with who else they got. I mean, you think about it. They got Edwards, and they got Tremaine Edwards, and they also got T.J. Edwards, and then they got Dylan Cole. They re-signed him, so I think their front seven is going to be super good. Not super like dynamic, but a lot more improved. And so I like the Bears draft class better than the Lions.
That's fair. I gave the Lions the slight edge, and this was a fingertip edge because I thought they got the best defensive player right now out of those two teams. Not saying a guy can't develop. I love Brian Branch as well. Like, they got two guys I had top. Well, hang on. When did I have Campbell was 19th on my board, right around where he got picked, and I had Branches, I think, 13th, if I remember correctly. But I had two guys top 20. They're the only team in this division to get two top 20 picks, and I was lower on Gibbs. And I did see draft night or something, it was after the draft, that they were going to use some wide receiver. Again, not defending the pick, did not like the pick. Just saying that maybe some more reasoning. And I look at just kind of the way Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have drafted. They've drafted really well. It's hard for me not to say they don't know what they're doing. Because they've brought in guys I was like, on, and then I'm like, oh, well, never mind. I just look at them, and I think they're overall two talents that kind of push them over the top for me over the Bears. That being said, they don't come close to the Packers. Because the Packers got Lucas Van Ness, who I think is going to be a stud. And I'm going to ask you this question. If the Lions decide to take Lucas Van Ness instead of Jahmyr Gibbs, how much better would you like their class?
So if you're just removing Gibbs and putting Van Ness in there and then still getting Jack Campbell and dude, that's money. That's money.
Yeah. And as you said, they got Tucker Kraft as well. Colby Wooden I liked. And Devontae Wicks I also liked as well. Sean Clifford. And Jaden Reed, I admittedly did not watch as much Jaden Reed because I did not think he would go that high in the class. That being said, he is talented when I went back and saw him a bit more. Just hard for me to fully get behind that pick in particular. But overall, I think the Packers had the best draft in this division. Maybe possibly my favorite draft in the entire league. And I can't forget it. I almost blanked on his name, but just clicked in my head. 6th round, he got Carl Brooks. Whew.
Yes. 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 Which I still don't know why he was devalued as much as he was. If it's just Bowling Green or if there was medical that nobody's talked about. But I think that he's amazing. So I think that'll be a sneaky good. I wasn't as high on Reed as neither one of us were as high on him as I guess that. But the thing that kind of boggles my mind there is he's not the DB that they like. They like long
wide
rangy
receiver.
guys.
You said DB. You said DB.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was thinking someone else. Yeah. No, you're right.
So,
that was my fault.
I don't know about you. I liked Wicks more than I liked Reed. And I think Wicks is going to be a bigger game changer in the Packers offense, and he kind of feels more like a Packers wide receiver more than Reed does, because as you just said, Reed isn't the typical body whatever, and we're used to the Packers drafting a certain type of receiver, and you can just tell that they kind of went a different route. And it's maybe going to work, it's maybe not.
The one thing I'll say about that is LaFleur might be thinking he can use Reed in the jet sweeps and things like that. That they really haven't had anybody to do anything like that for quite a while.
Yeah, that's fair. But the Sean Clifford pick, yuck. Yuck. Yeah, the Packers did have a great draft. It's very clear that they're stocking talent, and they are going to look at next year. If Love is not the guy, They have filled so many holes this draft class. They can trade up and go get one.
Yep. So who do you have for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I debated myself, and I know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. We're so low on Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to come out and just be explosive. He's going to be amazing for the Lions, and we're all going to look like idiots. But until it happens, I'm taking Luke Musgrave. He's the perfect tight end for Matt LaFleur's offense. When you saw, because I think you landed where you were flying to, and like you got in your rental vehicle, and that was like the first thing you saw was Luke Musgrave to the Packers, and you just texted me, damn it, because you knew it was a great pick. He fits the offense. He's perfect tight end. He will be perfect for Jordan Love with you got a young quarterback who is starting out early. What do they tend to target? The big body tight end.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to look much off because it's going to go right down the seam.
Yep.
So I have Jordan Addison, and I just think that with Justin Jefferson on the other side, he is going to have so many coverages to where he can, he can sit in the coverage and then, make a couple of moves. I think he's going to have a really good year.
Okay. So defensive rookie of the year for me, I, in the long run, think Lucas Van Ness will be the best defensive rookie of this class in this division. That being said, I don't think he makes the impact week one or throughout year one. I think Jack Campbell's that guy. He's a highly athletic linebacker. He's going to fill in a need that the Lions desperately have. He can come up, make tackle. He's good in pass coverage. I think this is a great pick for them, and I think he's going to progress that Lions defense dramatically. And he's also pretty good at covering tight ends. Pretty important when I just mentioned Luke Musgrave, and you're in division with TJ Hawkinson and Cole Kmet as well.
Yeah. Jack Campbell for me as well, for everything you just said.
Is the chalk pick. Best offseason addition. You're going to notice a run on the Lions here for me. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. As I said, I've been a fan of him since Florida. I've watched him play so much. He just changes the defense. That defense gets so many more turnovers. Look at the Saints last year without him, and look at years prior. Look at the Eagles with him. He just is a turnover ball magnet. He finds the ball, he gets it, and he gets his offense in good positions to score more points. Who is your best offseason addition?
Brian Flores.
Kind of hard to argue against that.
I just think that he's not just going to, it's not just him playing on one side of the field. He's fixing the field.
Yeah, and that field needs fixed after last year.
Yes, it does.
So, Coach of the Year, I went with Dan Campbell. As we have stated, he has built that culture from nothing. He has done a great job with that Lions. Everyone who's a Lion now, they know what it is to be a Detroit Lion. They maybe don't know to not bet on football games, but I'm sure that's about to come. I think it's a perfect situation for Campbell to kind of rise up and take Coach of the Year of this division, and maybe Coach of the Year in the entire NFL. We'll get to that later on when we talk about the whole league.
It's really weird. I've been slamming the Packers all night.
For fun, for your enjoyment.
But I think that LaFleur is going to be the Coach of the Year, and you and I rate this differently. I don't rate it by records. I rate it more so like as what you've done with a team. And like I said, I think that they could have a similar record as what they had last year and actually have done better than what they did last year simply because the pieces in the development. And so do I see them in the playoffs this year? No, I don't. But I see them developing their players and developing their team. And he's going to have to coach his ass off to get there.
Yep. My MVP of this division, I chose him because when he was out last year, the offense just wasn't as good. When he was healthy, when he was playing football, I know this. I had him in fantasy football. I loved him. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. He's not the best wide receiver in his own division. Unfortunately, he's in the same division as Justin Jefferson. But I think what he brings to the Lions offense is huge, and the Lions do make that leap. I think they do. They do have that dynamic offense and everything. A big part of it's because of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I'm going Justin Fields.
Wow! So, everyone, real quick. He has been telling me for like 2 weeks now, you're not going to guess it. You are not going to see it coming. And guess what? I did not.
So, with the exception of maybe Justin Jefferson, Justin Fields is the most dynamic offensive player in this division. He is going to have more weapons this year, a better offensive line, and he's going to be cut loose a little bit. They're going to work with him. Everybody had so many wow plays with him last year that he was the talk of the town week in and week out. And you saw what happened to their offense when he wasn't in the game. I think he's going to take a huge step forward this year. And whether it be throwing and sprinkling in his running attack, and he's not going to win the division, but he's going to be the most valuable player in this division because he's going to make the Bears watchable, and people are going to be talking about him.
That is such a shot at the Bears. I kind of love it. Like, yeah, the Bears are watchable, okay? Listen, do you know how hard that is? To be fair, it has seemed really challenging with some of the coaches and stuff they've done.
Yes, it has. But I mean, if you think about it last year, if you just look at the teams last year, he was probably runner up for MVP of it last year in the division, you know? So I think that
I'd have to think on who that was last year because I think Jefferson was the MVP, but you also got like Jamal Williams who set the Lions record for most rushing touchdowns in the year. That's hard to figure out. But I get what you're saying. Yeah,
he's right there. So
yep. So division standings. Do you want to reveal yours first?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we're really similar. I'm going Vikings, Lions, Packers, Bears.
Yeah. I'm going to do a reverse order so no one thinks I'm doing that. Bears last. As we have said, there are improvements on this team, but it's still got a ways to go. Packers, they feel middle of the pack. Young team, going to probably struggle to start out the year, but improve as season goes along. Vikings, for me, I just view them as maybe losing more games than they did strictly because I expect that one-score games to kind of just fall off a bit. And I think the Lions take that jump, and I think they are the best team in this division. Ben Johnson is a great OC. I love him. And as you said, the Lions DC has done a phenomenal job. I just look at the Lions. I think this is a team ready for the playoffs. So I got to ask you, how many playoff teams do you have in this division?
So this is the tough one because I had written down one early on, and then I started doing my homework on the schedule. And so when I'm looking at that and I see that they're playing, the AFC West. So I think that this whole division is going to struggle against the AFC West, right?
Well, maybe not one team.
And then the NFC South, we can laugh about Tampa Bay, but the rest of the NFC South could be a lot better this year. So I don't think they're going to be a pushover by any means. So I'm torn. I'm going to stick with one. How many are there's 7 total, right?
7.
All right. So let me 2.
While you do this, I got 2. I think the Lions win the division, and I think the Vikings make it as well. They have talent. They have a running game. And as you said, Brian Flores coming in, I think will be enough to get them a wild card round. And I look at the Lions as a team who I think is kind of sitting as a 3 seed in my mind right now. That's kind of where I have them placed.
I'm going to change mine to 2. I think that they take they're going to take the role of the third NFC East team. So I think the NFC East will have 2, NFC North will have 2, NFC West will have 2, and NFC South will have 1. That's what I'm gonna.
Okay. Well, hey, let's not spoil the other episodes here. Come on. Then there's one question, because you're gonna have the Lions obviously as a wild card team, and maybe you have them the 7th team. Is there a worse draw you could have than the Lions in the playoffs week 1?
If their offense doesn't miss a step, right? No, you don't want to play them, because one, that they can put up a ton of yards. 2, that Dan Campbell will have them ready, and 3, they're going to have an it factor if they get there.
Yeah, that is probably, if you're the team, you're like, no, favor the Lions, Vegas, favor them. We don't need to give that team more ammo. We don't need them more hyped up. But that's going to wrap us up for the NFC North. This was fun. As I said, next week's the NFC East. There's some interesting topics in that division. There's a lot to talk about there. With the coaching staff, with the whole who's quarterback, the Eagles, the defending NFC champions. There's a lot to go into there. But I hope you all enjoyed, and we'll come along this ride for the 2023 season. We're going to have a lot of fun here. So enjoy, everyone, and have a great day.
And hey, if you've got any questions, comments, you want to tell us that we're wrong, right, you can tell Jordan he's wrong. That's okay.
Hey!
Please respond and let us know what you think.
And if you want, our Twitter handles will be in the description if you want to find us on there. I'm not going to put threads in there because I already think that app's already dead. So have a good day, everyone, and be safe.